don't know, I thought that would be intimidating. What's up, guys? This is my full review for the Batman, and if you're new here, please subscribe. Okay, this was one of my favorite movies of all time. First of all, the acting, wonderful job by every single person in the cast, especially Robert Pattinson. I really bought the emo vibe he was going for. He literally tells Alfred at one point, like, "You're not my father." And he reminds me so much of my middle school self. Everyone in the cast was wonderful. Like, it was like top tier acting by every single person in the cast. So I have no complaints about that whatsoever. But Paul Dano as the Riddler, absolutely terrifying. He was the best actor in the entire movie, but my favorite character will have to go to Robert Pattinson, my favorite Batman. Next up, the cinematography. Everyone has been talking about the cinematography. I hear about the wonderful cinematography in every single review I've watched about the Batman, but this movie honestly deserves an Oscar for so many stuff, but especially for cinematography. Like, that was one of the standouts from the entire movie. I love how they did a superhero movie that also felt so grounded at the same time. And also, that actually brings me to the CGI, that not even one person has mentioned the CGI, because it is so realistic. It's by Weta Digital, the greatest VFX company ever. The CGI is so realistic that people didn't even notice there was CGI in the movie, and there was the good amount of CGI in the movie, and no one noticed it. I didn't notice a single VFX shot in the entire movie. I know there was some, but I didn't notice any. But my favorite part about this movie was the directing. Matt Reeves, one of the greatest filmmakers of all time in my opinion, who also made 3 of the greatest movies of all time in my opinion: Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, War for the Planet of the Apes, and The Batman. This is the greatest directed comic book project ever. Like, the shots where we see in the trailer Paul Dano is in the diner and he's kind of turning himself in. The camera's the character in itself. Like, the camera is one of the police guys, because he's like slowly pushing into the diner, and the cops just like go around, and it's just such a good shot. Also, in the beginning, we see in the trailer where the Batman's like just brutally beating someone, that gang of, like, I don't even know what they're called, but that shot, if you guys see in the movie, you know what I'm talking about. There's this one shot where it's in the POV of Batman and those other guys at the same time, because the camera's in the shadows and it's slowly pushing forward, and it's in the POV of Batman because that's literally where he's standing, but also in the POV of those other, like, I'll just call them goons because I don't know their names. It's in the POV of the goons because we can't see what they're looking at, but we know it's going towards them, and that builds suspense. So that was genius. The production design, like, every single set was so realistic, especially in Bruce Wayne's tower. Like, you can tell he has so much money but just doesn't care. Like, it's so messy. It's so big and so messy at the same time, but I thought all the sets were wonderful, and the sound was surprisingly extraordinary. If you guys saw this movie in Dolby, the Batmobile scene, the Batmobile chase, I love you, Daddy, thank you. Someone in my TikTok chat said, "I love you, Daddy, thank you." But as we saw in the trailer, the Batmobile scene, if you see that in Dolby, like, you feel like you're literally sitting in the passenger seat next to Batman. Your chair is literally like vibrating, and my heart was beating so fast. That was definitely the most fun scene in the entire movie. It just felt so alive because of Matt Reeves. And just the sound design all around was extraordinary. The makeup and hairstyling, you got, like, as soon as the trailer came out, everyone was talking about Colin Farrell as the Penguin. The makeup was extraordinary, and I think they deserve an Oscar win alone for that. And I love kind of Bruce Wayne as emo hair. I'm doing a TikTok on that later, actually. This chase scene was godly, I know. That was one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. Definitely the most fun, and, like, it was so intense. Next up, the costume. I love, like, I have a Funko of him back here. It feels very realistic, and I just love, like, the armored look of it. And I wish we saw, like, that bat, like, symbol thing in the middle. We don't know if that's, like, from the gun that killed his parents, but that's a popular theory going around. I hope that's true, because that's amazing. So I love everyone's costume, especially Calvin. You're so good looking, bro. Thank you. I thought the editing was really solid. Like, the best editing is the editing that you can't see, and I didn't even notice any cuts. Like, editing was fine, alright. I don't know much about editing, so I can't really go dive deep into that. Yeah, editing was fine. The score, oh my god, one of the greatest scores I have ever heard. I know it's Michael Giacchino, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he's arguably the greatest composer ever. The score was like, they used the score to the fullest potential, like the dun, dun, dun. And then if you see it in Dolby, like your chair is just shaking the whole time. The score was just incredible. And that's all I can say. The score was incredible and one of the greatest scores I've ever heard. And it gave me Spider-Man, Planet of the Apes, and Star Wars vibes in one. The screenplay. Oh, the screenplay, yeah, they used it so many times. That's why, like, every time the score came on, like, I was like, oh my god. Shout out to over 20 people here. Shout out to everyone here. The screenplay, like, the writing all around was incredible. One of the greatest written comic book projects I've ever seen in my life. But that brings me to the first 15 minutes, which I think was arguably the greatest intro to any movie or show ever. Like, it was so well written. There's a voiceover. Batman gives like a voiceover in the beginning and the end of the film, which shows the character progression too. But the beginning voiceover, just, I felt like I was in Gotham, and I felt like I was one of the criminals, because Batman was so freaking terrifying. And this is no spoilers, but my favorite line from the entire movie was something like, I don't know if I'm saying this exactly accurate, but he's like, they think I'm hiding in the shadows, but I am the shadows. I was like, oh my god, that was what automatically, right when I heard it, one of my favorite lines ever. Yeah, so it's written by Matt Reeves, so I wasn't expecting nothing less of a masterpiece. The CGI, like I said, was so good, and I think it's gonna get an Oscar nom for CGI because it was so, like I said, for people who were here earlier for the stream, I didn't notice a single VFX shot, which is the biggest compliment ever. If you're going to this expecting an action movie, you're obviously gonna get it, but if you go in only for the action, you're not gonna be too happy. I think this is a drama sprinkled. This is the drama with action, romance, horror, thriller sprinkled throughout. But it's like mainly a drama in my opinion. And I was not expecting the funny lines. Like, there were a lot of funny lines, especially by the Penguin. Good cop, bad cop. If you guys saw it, you know what I'm talking about. Funny lines kind of were funnier because the whole vibe to the movie was really dark. And so when you heard like, there were a couple funny lines throughout the movie, and when you heard them, they were like subtle comedy. So it didn't like ruin the intense vibe, but it was also funny at the same time. Overall, this is incredibly unpopular for both a Marvel and DC fan, and I think anyone saw the movie, but I think this is one of the greatest movies ever. Top 50, top 100, I'll say, just to be safe. Top 100 best movies ever. I think it's for me the third greatest comic book movie ever. I understand people who say it's the greatest comic book movie ever because in individual aspects, like of everything I said, the acting, directing, everything, I think it was the best in all those individual aspects. Like, same with the Joker. That's why I got so many Oscar nominations. So I understand people saying this is the greatest comic book movie ever, but for me it's the third greatest comic book movie ever. Not the third greatest, sorry, fourth. I got Endgame, Infinity War, Civil War, The Batman. I have to go check my letterbox, but I think this is like my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I heard people saying like the last 20-30 minutes was underwhelming, but I didn't feel that way whatsoever. Maybe 2 or 3 scenes that I felt was like a little bit boring. There's one scene, no spoilers, there was one scene in a hospital, and a couple minutes in I was like, wait, we're still on this scene, can we like move forward? But I'm not too mad at it because it was a very important scene for Bruce Wayne as a character. This is like easy 4.5 out of 5 stars. I give it like an A+. I don't know whatever scoring system you guys want to go by, but I think like it has like an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it deserves at least a 90. Okay, these are all the Oscars I think the Batman deserves. A nomination for cinematography, maybe a nomination for directing, but it depends on the competition. Maybe a nomination for production design, a win for best sound, a win for best makeup / hairstyling, a nomination for costume, nomination for editing, win for score, nomination for screenplay, nomination for CGI, and obviously a nomination for best picture. Someone in my comment section on TikTok said, was the movie actually scary and how dark does it get? It depends like on the person who's watching. I thought it was, besides Joker, I think it was the darkest comic book movie ever. There was this one scene where there's this jump scare in like the first 3 to 4 minutes of the movie where you don't expect. It's not one of those jump scares where you know what's gonna happen because all of a sudden it gets quiet, but you don't know what's gonna happen. But when it happens, your heart just stops. And when I saw that in my theater at like first day opening night, everyone just gasped because like I can't. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you've seen the movie, there's something has something to do with the dark. I don't want to go into too many details. It had horror elements, but like scary. I wouldn't consider it scary, but it was intense, very investing, and dark too. And if I had to sum it up, what are my favorite movies ever? Okay, there's a spoiler comment in the comment section that I'm not gonna say, but to answer your question, yes, that person is already my favorite interpretation of the character. If you guys seen the movie, then you know what I'm talking about, but I made a TikTok about it too. When reviewing shows and movies, I split it into 2 categories. Category number 1 is the overall story, emotion, and how invested I am. Category 2 is like the Oscars, like all the individual categories, like acting, directing, cinematography, CGI, like all of that. So I think in category 2, The Batman is the greatest comic book movie ever, but overall, I'm still gonna have to give it to Endgame, Infinity War, Civil War, and I'm biased too, obviously. But I don't think Joker is in it. I don't know. The Batman score has been on. It's going on repeat in my head. I love No Way Home. This is a question I've been getting so many times in my comments. Do you think the Batman or No Way Home is better? I think the Batman was better, but I love No Way Home much more. Like most of my love for No Way Home is because of Andrew. Because as a child, like I literally would do anything to get Andrew back. I was so sad that he got fired. Bro's net worth is Marvel? Pfft, not yet. Okay, I saw Batman on Wednesday, and then when I went to sleep that night, I had a dream with Zoe Kravitz. I literally, I saw the Batman at like 7 p.m., and I went to sleep that night, and I had a dream with Zoe Kravitz in it. It wasn't anything weird, it was just like, she was just there. I was like, but Catwoman, I am down bad. Dude, Alfred was the baddie. Well, shout out to one of my viewers. He's in school and watching. Alright guys, follow my TikTok, limit on TikTok, and if you're still here throughout the entire video, thank you, and please subscribe. See you guys later.